Hello and welcome to the Monster Mechanics Podcast, where we take creatures of myth and media and see how they can be improved. I am your host, Scott Paladin, and with me as always is the Jeeves to my Wooster, Zach Jaquays. What are we talking about today, Zach?
This week we're talking about the Displacer Beast. So the Displacer Beast is a D&D holdover from early editions of D&D. It is described as a six-legged panther-like beast, jet black, with two writhing tentacles emerging from its shoulder blades. Its most notable ability is that it isn't actually standing where it appears to be. There's either some sort of illusion effect or quantum mechanic or something that goes on where if you strike at this creature, you're more than likely to swing through air.
Yeah, it's been displaced in space from its image. It's an interesting idea that a creature would like somehow have a Forgotten Realms wiki describes it as like a refractive ability of its skin, basically. Like this is not even magical. It's just like it somehow is able to capture light and project its image somewhere else, which is really interesting. Not at all how that would actually work in the real world. Like you can't do that. Like
I actually have an idea that sort of just sprang fully formed into my mind just a moment ago.
Please do.
So the idea that kind of sprang to my mind is like just the idea of lag or latency with this creature's appearance. Like what if this thing is a projection from another realm or something, but there's a delay in like
interesting.
Like the signals that's being sent to it. So like it's not actually where it actually is because like it's just waiting for that update from the other realm.
So that's interesting because while I was thinking about the refractive nature of its being, I was thinking of the way that light is refracted around black holes, which causes a gravitational lensing effect, which won't produce the same sort of effect as, like it doesn't make the black hole appear to be in a different place. But what it can do is allow you to see things that are on the other side of it, like light from the other side of a black hole actually gets transmitted out and around it and to you. And it was even theorized, I'm not sure if they've backed this up or not, but one scientist was talking about using that as a way to observe stars by staring at the edge of a black hole for it to send us more light from a particular star in order to gather more data about it. And similar to what to that idea, the idea of a black hole refracting light because just from its gravitation, light moves slower through high gravity wells than it does through low gravity areas, which means that the light that is passing close to a black hole takes longer to get where it's going and therefore will be even farther back in the past than previously. And because of relativity, that means that time is actually slowing down during that same period, which kind of lines up with what you're talking about, where like it could create a kind of lag effect if if the light is being passed through some sort of gravitational lens. Of course, we're talking about if the Displacer Beast had such a high gravity that it was able to do this, it would be crushing the entire planet down into a marble-sized...
thereby displacing its environment.
Yeah. You definitely can't kill a Displacer Beast if you've been crushed down to the size of a marble. So I'm not sure that may be the answer to what we're talking about, but I'm surprised we were able to find at least some inroad where there's a little bit of real life science that can get pulled in by the stupid Displacer Beast with its tentacles on its back.
I just love the idea of adventurers complaining about lag.
I mean, even if it wasn't being projected from somewhere, some other dimension or something, even if it was just like you are only seeing it a few seconds ago, is kind of an interesting idea where it's like it's got some sort of magical BS going on such that the light that hits your eyes is actually 10, 15 seconds in the past. So as long as this thing keeps moving, you're going to have a hard time knowing where it was. But it gives the adventurers some amount of information, knowing that like, because one thing that always bothered me about the Displacer Beast is it doesn't do it, or at least in game senses, it doesn't do it in a consistent way. Like just because you know where the image is, you don't know where the beast is.
Yeah.
But if you are essentially watching it in the past and it is, say, following a path, you knowing how far ahead it was, knowing its speed, you might be able to guess at where it actually is, in the quote unquote future where it actually, because you're seeing an after image.
Interesting. One of the other interesting things about the Displacer Beast in D&D lore is that they are the mortal enemies of blink dogs.
And blink dogs actually teleport, though.
Yes.
Right? Interesting. That implies that the link with the blink dogs implies that there's some sort, they come from somewhere where this kind of thing is like a natural ability that can be evolved into.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe all or many creatures have the ability to sort of like mess with time and space a little bit.
I mean, like with the dog aspect, kind of reminds me of like the Hounds of Tyndalos, which are like temporal assassins sent to track down time travelers in the form of some vaguely canid form.
Yeah. It also reminds me a little bit of the cat Pixel from a couple of different Heinlein books. The titular cat who walks through walls, which was a cat that figured out how to move through solid objects because it was able to like quantum physics its way through because nobody ever told it couldn't. And it's just like this one cat figured out this one neat trick to get through solid objects.
God, that feels more like God, I'm blanking on the name of the author.
Douglas Adams.
Yes.
Where it's like, yeah, you can fly by forgetting to hit the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, no one ever told me I couldn't do that, so.
So, okay, so let's approach this things before we come back around to its displacement effect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about the biology because it does have an interesting configuration of appendages.
Yeah.
This thing is described as being like a 9-foot long black panther, like a big, a big cat that has 6 legs and an additional set of tentacles on its shoulders, which is not a body plan that you see a lot of in nature. At least not on the large scale of vertebrates. Everything pretty much is down to just a couple of legs and no additional appendages. But we are talking about like a D&D-ish world where, dragons have 4 legs and wings. And so, and bullays have 8 legs or something like that. And so like,
I think they just have the 4 legs. There's they're Orumvorax, which, eats gold and has a million legs and is just like a honey badger or something.
You know what I'm thinking of is there's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon where there's like a rhino with 8 legs, and that whenever I think of the Boule, I always just think of that. Now I'm gonna have to Google search because I can't remember what it was. 8-legged rhino cartoon. It like shot lasers out of its stupid trunk or horn. The Herculoids. Yes.
Nice.
Okay. The main dude of this looks a lot like He-Man too.
I feel like calling like any sci-fi creature something that ends in an oid just really dates your really
sure.
dates your sci-fi. Oh yeah, he really does have that He-Man vibe going on, doesn't he? Page boy haircut and all.
Yeah. I have to say, except for the dude who just looks like He-Man, I think they're probably aping like Conan originally, just with the stupid haircut.
Yeah.
But like the monsters are actually got a kind of aesthetic going on. Like I kind of dig their sort of blocky kind of character nature. And these like big blob dudes.
Yeah,
it's all right. We are like 2 tangents deep off of Displacer Beasts.
As per usual.
Okay, so we're talking about they got like 6 legs and tentacles. What if we imagine a world where evolution works, that you can sort of change body plans like that, where like a creature with 4 legs could then develop additional sets of segments, let's say. What is what evolutionary purpose does having those tentacles give you? Like, because a large cat is built as like an ambush, like pouncing predator for the most part. If it's working like a tiger, if it's a cheetah or like a lion, they're a little bit more. They do a little bit more running out in the open. But like, what purpose are these tentacles for? Are they a special purpose? Are they related to the displacement effect, or are they just like general purpose grabby bits?
I feel like they're related to the displacement effect. Like, I feel like they're sort of like an extended whisker almost.
Interesting, because the wiki entry I read on them said that they prefer to use those as their attack. Is that like they will preferentially attack people with their tentacles? I'm guessing just like smacking them. It didn't say that they had any weapons or anything on them.
Let's see. Let's pull up the stats on these things.
Man, the like first edition art for the Displacer Beast has like teeth on its tentacles. That's a fucked up version of that. I'm down with that.
No, I mean that's pretty much carried over across all versions. Like,
it is. They look like regular. Like they had they look like squid tentacles. Oh, I guess they do have the teeth on the newer versions too.
It's just a
interesting
big old pseudopod full of teeth.
Well, like okay, so the more modern versions have like the like diamond shaped ending to the tentacle, and that's got the teeth on it. But like the original like black and white first edition monsters, let me see if I can pull that one up, because that one has like, it's got a whole line of teeth. Oh, okay, so it doesn't go all the way down, but it's got like a whole, like it goes further back, which looks rad. It's not a great drawing overall, but I do like that one idea. So what I'm thinking is, if it's an ambush predator who's got these big tentacles, then it probably doesn't need to use its claws as weapons, really, because it's got such good grabbing ability from those tentacles. Similarly, they could take over a lot of the climbing that those legs would normally take care of. Like that's one of the reasons why like leopards and lions and stuff use their claws, and cats, is to actually to do a lot of climbing. So it seems like they're sort of over-engineered, maybe is the way to put it. Like they've got too many abilities to do this. Like any kind of creature that is under evolutionary pressure is going to drop things that are unnecessary. So if it's like got way more climbing ability than it needs and attacking ability, it's going to drop some of that stuff. So maybe you'd see like a different sort of, like maybe it'd have more like paws instead of claws, without the big old talons on its legs, because it's got these tentacles.
Interesting.
Or possibly maybe it's just all tentacles. Maybe it's like a cat head with like a bunch of squid tentacles that it can like run around on.
Is this how we get the octopussy?
Oh god damn it. Moving on.
Anyways,
so
yeah, that or it lives in an environment where it needs all that climbing and grappling potential.
So like a world where maybe like it's even like a rainforest that is denser and taller than the rainforest we can imagine, like a world where a rainforest with no bottoms, like it's just trees growing on other trees all the way down.
Interesting. That's kind of a cool environment idea.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm kind of thinking about what if the Displacer Beast is like like the changes that arrive at it are some sort of parasite. Where like imagine a thing with like that's got some tentacles going on, that finds other animals to like latch onto and sort of like grants them these like space changing abilities.
Interesting.
So like maybe the original creature is from some really weird dimension where like it's got easy access to the ability to like move through time and space, and like when it comes to like a more familiar environment, it attaches itself to another creature. And like sort of as a trade-off, it grants it some of these abilities that it's got in order to live as a parasite on its body and sort of integrate with it.
Interesting. So it's sort of like a parasitic Doc Ock exoskeleton kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. And like that might explain why like you could have a series of different creatures that were all affected by the same parasite, but like because like the idea being that when it attaches itself to a monster, that gives it different manifestations of those powers. So like when it attaches itself to a puma, it creates a Displacer Beast. If it attaches itself to a jackal, it makes a blink dog, And so then you get like this whole category of weird tentacly alien creature, like tentacly versions of familiar creatures that have different sorts of like space and time abilities.
Interesting. So is this thing ever able to like detach, like decides like, oh no, like my host is dying, I need to out of here? Or does it just sort of merge with the creature?
I feel like it merges. Just looking at the art, like you don't see like a clear line from like the one side to the other.
Yeah.
But maybe, oh God, how gross would it be if it like, instead of like we were just talking about like as an exoskeleton that like grabs onto the back or whatever, but like isn't it worse if it like burrows in and then the stuff erupts from within?
Ugh. Yeah. that is objectively worse.
I mean, you could go full cordyceps with it too, where like it's not really a beneficial, like it's got some there's a period of time where it's acting like a Displacer Beast, but the longer that the infestation goes on, the worse things get.
So what's the benefit of it granting like the Displacer Beast or the Displacer effect? Or what's
depends on which way we want to go. Do we want to okay? If this thing is a trans-dimensional parasite that moves from like reality to reality, infesting creatures and then moving on, is kind of, and in that case, it's more a. I know there's a distinction between kinds of parasites. Like some of them will. Like a tick like bites you, sucks some blood, and then drops off and like doesn't kill you. But then there's cordyceps, which burrows into its host, takes over its brain, and kills the host as part of its life cycle. And I forget which one's which. There's different words for those. So the real question is, do we want to determine which one of these is the plan for our parasite displacer creature? Like, is it forming a beneficial relationship with the creature and then maybe dropping off, or maybe just living out its life as a new entity? Or is it like killing this thing and moving on?
My initial thought is to go like more of a symbiotic type relationship where it's like there's some benefit it gets and there's some benefit the host creature gets.
Okay, so more, yeah, like a symbiote relationship.
Because if it was just like using it for like to ultimately discard it, like it feels like going for a predator type creature wouldn't be in its best interest long term.
Well, I'm thinking that like we are seeing the Displacer Beast version of it, but that they could infect pretty much anything, like alien style.
Okay.
As a note, we should mention that apparently the Displacer Beast is based off of a short story written by A.E. Van Vogt, right? And apparently, as I was reading the Wikipedia article on that entry, it talked about how that, as paired with a couple of other books, had a lot of similarities to the movie Alien. So much so that the guy sued the production company about it. But I'm thinking, like, if you want to draw some of that same idea of like a creature that like is brought in to our universe as like an alien and is like kind of alien style, xenomorph style, infecting creatures and changing them and then moving on, and like, you know, is a real threat of it into itself, as opposed to just being some niche hunter or predator on some planet. That's kind of cool. But we don't have to go that way. I think the symbiotic relationship's also pretty cool.
No, I do like that idea. Like,
okay. Wait. Sorry, I just had an idea. What if we're talking about a parasitic or symbiotic creature that comes in, makes some changes to its host for its own survival, and then f***s off and leaves.
Interesting.
And leaves behind a Displacer Beast. So like this like comes in, makes some changes to the Displacer Beast as part of its, you know, like it has to make some biological changes for itself. And then some of the things it just does like kind of at random, maybe, you know, and then over the like, and so granting like the displacing ability as part of its ability to move from like our one dimension to another or something like that, you know, that's like a side effect. And then it leaves. And for some of its hosts, like the changes it's made are like deadly, but it just so happens that there are some species like these whatever the original puma or whatever is, that when it makes its changes, they come out like much more fit and like better for their environment. And so they are managed to just like, and the parasites long left them behind, but they're able to continue to go on and use some of these abilities and stuff.
I like that idea of the displacement effect being basically like a side effect, or like just an unintended consequence. I like the idea that like there's just like something about like this original parasite entity coming through that just like is completely incompatible with this world. And so like it just physically like displaces this creature in time, or like, like its presence is sort of displaced in like a way that doesn't really make sense for like, you know, anyone living on this planet.
So, okay. If it's a creature, a parasitic creature coming from like a world where like the fundamental like rules of time and space are function a bit differently than ours, then like coming into our space, like this is not going to work if you think about it more than 2 seconds. But like if it had a different set of dimensions than we do, like we have the main three spatial dimensions and one dimension of time. Imagine that it like you like that it, all of it, I want to say it's like that it somehow is right angled to all of those, like its own dimensions are like at a different like inflection point than ours, and so therefore our kind of space is like fundamentally incompatible with the physical existence of this creature.
Their pi is like 7.3 or something, or
and like gravitational constants and like strong nuclear forces and all these things, like maybe they don't even exist, or if they do, they're in like very different ways. And like literally this thing just like you could mathematically express its ability to exist, but like if you try to bring it into our world, like it doesn't have the right dimensions to do it. But it's able to, like within some entities, bring in a little bit of its own universe and like use that as like a little pocket to like to develop itself, right? To bring it along. And then eventually it's going to move on. And like, you know, maybe, I don't know if these things are, if this parasite's sentient or not, or if it's just like, if it's got desires.
Like, I like the idea that maybe it's even just like spores or something. Like it's just,
it's
completely, it's not, you know, like malign in its intent. It just, it doesn't even have an intent. It's just trying to proliferate.
Yeah. It's like a fungus or something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just going to spread out, and when it does so, it's like changing little bits of the world to be more like its home dimension, right? And in doing so, it like f***s up like the creatures that it infests, or maybe even it doesn't even necessarily have to be creatures. Maybe it's like can also infest like rocks and like areas and trees and stuff like that. And then it goes off. And then I like the idea that sometimes when it like moves from one dimension to another, or one time in space to another, because it doesn't play by the normal rules, it could go from like one planet to another immediately. I like the idea that sometimes it drags along its host. Not all the time, but sometimes. Which means that you could have like displacer beasts that show up all over the place because they happen to get dragged along by our displacer fungus.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a fun multiverse idea where like, you're flying from planet to planet, you keep finding these displacer beasts and you're having to figure out the source for all of them.
The issue is that like they're just operating on different math than the rest of the universe.
That's rad. Okay, so the question that arises from this idea to me is what happens when it like infests different creatures? Because we have the traditional displacer beast, the cat-based one. We have, I'm thinking that Blink Dog's got to be the same thing, right?
Okay.
Are there any other D&D creatures that could be explained by this one off the top of your head?
Like a lot of like the far realm type stuff tends to stick out because that's just usually way too many eyes, way too many teeth, lots of tentacles, and weird abilities.
What the hell's a Banderhob?
What is a Banderhob?
Sorry, it came up as a list of creatures that had teleporting. Oh, the most fearsome of the Banderhob's supernatural powers is their link to the world of shadow. Using their wide eyes and special receptors in their skin, Banderhobs are able to uniquely sense the presence of crossing between other planes and Shadowfell. Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'm not sure that is useful for this discussion, but it's interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Aside.
So, what's like? Okay, could the I mentioned that they that this creature, this fungus or whatever, this displacing parasite might be able to infect other things. Could that be the source of stuff like bags of holding and portable holes and stuff, like the time displacing items in the world?
Interesting.
Or like sometimes like if they infest a certain area, they can leave behind portals, like the wardrobe to Narnia, or like one of these things bores its way between two realities and leaves behind just a portal.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Like they're sort of like they're not just like infesting like things, like they're infesting concepts, and like so they might like infest the concept of a doorway and like turn that into something perverse.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense. Or making a like what I was thinking is like when these things infest something, a physical place or not, they can't make things up whole cloth. They have to sort of like they reconfigure this thing not intentionally, but sort of accidentally using some of its own bits, which explains why like the Displacer Beast cat has an extra set of legs, is because like it's the first set of legs just refracted again. And then like the tentacles or something like that would either be like you said, maybe extended whiskers or like a malformed appendage or something like that, something that had happened, or just additional tails or something.
Yeah,
like you could
like it first like copied the legs using the math of the universe it had, and then it tried copying the legs with the math of the universe it had, and it got some weird toothy tentacle thing instead.
Yeah. And so what you end up with looking at that evidence for like what does it do when it infects a creature? If you looked at it for like a doorway, what it might do is have like multiple handles or like hinges on both sides, but still somehow able to open, or like you open up the door and there's still another door right there, or like I don't know, like I love the idea of it like taking bits of whatever it is it's taken a hold of and like changing them and like putting them in new places and ways that you wouldn't expect, Yeah.
So what does a displacer dragon look like?
It's got to be a lot of wings, man. It's got to just have like all of the wings. Do you remember the movie Reign of Fire?
Yeah.
I remember the dragons in that. I mean, it's not the dragons in that always had holes in their wings, which they had been like run ragged. It looked fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like imagining these like kind of torn up wings, like just a ton of them. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other weird things you could do to it. I'm imagining it for some reason because of I was thinking of the holes in the wings. I'm thinking of it like sort of this thing is sort of degrading the dragon and like making like parts of it fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And the parts that fall off are little holes to other realities.
Oh.
Because like in order to infest a whole dragon, like a dragon's a big thing. So like this infestation had to have been going on for a while. And so like it's kind of advanced to a certain development, like to a certain stage, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like you can imagine like a scale falling off and like opening up to like the elemental realm of fire or like inside of a star or something. So there's just like plasma firing out from this thing's body and stuff.
Interesting. Or like it's just sort of like conduits, like these elemental factors. So if you had a black dragon breathing acid, like suddenly like it's just falling off and like just gushing like acidic.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking the if we're in a D&D world, then we're talking about, you know, elementally based dragons. So they've already got some affinity to some other planes. And therefore, like when this thing gets in there, it's like, well, there's an easy channel over here to this other dimension. I'm going to start around with that. Or it's just more likely to do it. And so therefore, like, can you imagine a dragon that has like, I don't know, like the interior of it has like swollen up so that it has this huge like whale-like mouth and this big bulbous body. And then when it opens its mouth, it's just a gateway somewhere else.
Oh,
you know, like into the vacuum of space, basically. Like it opens up its mouth and there's stars and all of the air starts rushing out into space.
Yeah, that's some strong Astral Dreadnought vibes there.
Yeah, man, that you could do some rad things. I think the idea of like maybe the for something large like a dragon and something as variable as a dragon, maybe there's not like one simple answer. It's like you just got to do some like if you're making a displacer dragon, it's just like you gotta do some body horror Lovecraftian stuff of your own and just figure out how it's different than normal, you know? Yeah.
It's just a column of flame that breathes reptiles.
I was thinking about how also sometimes we were talking about portals and stuff, and one of the thing that is would be messed up is portals that mess with scale as well as space.
Okay.
Like I've seen this in a couple of like game concepts, computer game concepts, where like you walk through a room and the two portals are different sizes. So Alice in Wonderland style, you go through one door and you come out tiny.
Yeah.
And like so you can imagine like a dragon whose spines have been replaced with like jagged peaks of mountains that are like rocks.
Oh, interesting.
It's got like tiny little trees growing on it or something because like the holes have been messed up with space and time, and it's become infested with like a whole other planet's ecosystem in tiny little miniature all around it.
That's pretty badass. Very confusing to the players when you're describing that, I'm sure.
I mean, like, I don't know. I'm just riffing on ideas. Like
yeah.
none of this is gonna be practical use unless it inspires somebody. That's our whole thing. Is like we never have to do the hard work of turning these into good, like useful ideas that anybody could actually do anything with. We could just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this dragon was made of butts? And then you just talk about butt dragons for a little while, and then somebody else is the one who has to deal with it or not, whatever.
And that's how the episode developed into butt dragons.
I mean, I'm sure there's an elemental plane of poop out there or something that you could hook up to, or flatulence or something. I don't know. So there's
if not, elemental
plane of farts. Yeah. Okay. That's the sign that stuff has broken down, and I am no longer able to have coherent thoughts. So let's move on to listener questions.
Alrighty.
Okay. So actually, we're going to start with a question from Ryan at Evitable Fate.
Okay.
Which monsters would make the best parents, birth or adopted? Like, if you have birth parents that are some other monster, then you're just one of those monsters, right? Like, that's the similar version of the question as which monster would be the best monster to be, which we've tackled, I think. So we're going to talk about which monsters would raise the best children, I guess. Like, what are the most caring, I guess?
Like on what metrics are we, like, to raise you to be the best of your monster, or like give you the least traumatic childhood?
Yeah, I mean, so
I like the idea of monster adopted parents, though. I feel like that's
yeah. I mean, like
that's an anime waiting to happen.
Werewolves come to mind because of the whole adopted by wolves trope and the whole like wolf pack thing. So it seems like they would be a decent one. If you're like, okay, so let's assume that you're a human person. You're going to be, you can choose to be adopted by any like creature. What are you going to be raised by? I think, like I said, werewolves, I think, is a good show. I don't think vampires are, like, from the classic ones, I don't think vampires are a good monster because their lifespan's way too long, and you're going to get a bunch of outdated history and morals and stuff. And then also you're like a tasty snack, right?
Yeah.
And what else? What other options could we have there?
Let's see. What is What is being raised by like? I feel like the most common trope is like I'm half dragon or
Yeah, raised by dragons is, again, I think you have a little bit of the time scale problem. Is like you're basically a pet to them, so I don't feel like they'd be super involved in your like development.
It's the next. It's the next iteration of the How to Train Your Dragons series. How to Train Your Human.
Oh, okay. I'm going to make an argument that the original Mary Shelley's version of Frankenstein's monster,
Okay,
who is taught from, because he is the whole point of that story is that his creator makes him and then abandons him, and he freaking hates it. Is that in trying to, in the way that sometimes children of very bad parents grow up to be like super good parents, I think there's a pretty good chance that character grows up to be like actually very kind and caring because of how badly he was treated in his earth. And also it's been established he's very smart and like was self-taught. And so he'd probably be pretty good at like the homeschooling thing. So
yeah.
Okay. I think that works.
I think Frankenstein's monster works great there.
All right. Gotta go through all these. Okay. So another one from Richard Kreutz-Landry at R. Kreutz-Landry. Which monster really shouldn't survive, but does anyway because they're cute?
Because they're cute.
Yeah, see, we're going to have to immediately disqualify all Pokemon because I think the Pokemon universe is pretty effed up and most of those creatures wouldn't live.
Yeah.
But they get by on, but the entire IP gets by on it being very cute, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like the Pokemon universe, like based on the typing system, like you always have something that you're going to be a potential predator of just because, the rock, paper, scissors nature of their Pokemon types.
Maybe. Let's see. I mean, I hate to be a broken record on these things, but in my book, the Squonk definitely falls prey to this because it's pitiful and it doesn't have any skills and it dies of embarrassment if it's seen. But that is great and I like it. So the legend lives on.
Doesn't it die of embarrassment because it's so ugly?
Yeah. So but that's like there's a certain it's like a pug, or a like one of those so ugly it's cute kind of things, where like it comes back around horseshoe style, or like it goes so far down the ugly end that it ends up back on the cute side.
God, I feel like goblins, and this is more of like a D&D thing than anything else.
Yeah.
Just because they always and like name a party that hasn't adopted a goblin at some point in the past.
Yeah. It's a survival trait. Like they're actually like evolutionarily pressured to be adorable and pitiful so that people will adopt them and not kill them.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see what else we got. This one is from Galaxy Commander Silver, who's not actually on Twitter. This was off of a Discord thing. What would dragon taste like?
I mean, the easy answer is chicken, but
yes. So I had when I saw this on Discord, I had some initial thoughts. One is that they are most like in like their body plan. They're most like crocodilians and dinosaurs. Dinosaurs we know are also chickens. So, and then also I've had alligator. It's a lot like chicken. So like chicken is a pretty good bet. That being said, it might actually be super rank because apex predators tend to, depending on the environment, can actually build up things like heavy metals in their body because if it's present in the environment, then the herbivores are going to eat that, and then something's going to eat the herbivores, and then like it goes up the food chain and becomes more and more concentrated as it does. And so, this is a particularly bad problem in seafood these days because a lot of those creatures are tuna and stuff are eating smaller fish that have eaten stuff that's full of mercury. So if you're in a particularly polluted environment, who knows in a D&D world what kind of magical metals are living in all the soils.
Oh yeah.
It could be pretty bad. There's also a
this one's just got too much mithril and adamantine in it.
Who knows what that does if you try to eat it. Similarly, there's a like various apex predators, like especially their organs can be really rich in certain vitamins, and those specifically do not eat the livers of apex predators like dogs.
Oh yeah.
They have way too much vitamin A, and you get hypervitamin Aosis or something like that, and it literally makes the top layer of your bones separate from the inner layers and then try to heal again, and it's supposedly one of the worst ways to die.
Well, that's horrifying.
Yes. So this is most notable for people who are maybe going to take a dog sledding trip through the Arctic, as a bunch of unfortunate people used to do, and then they'd eat their sled dogs and end up dying of hypervitamin Aosis. That is, of course, if you made it past the thing where they used to take tin cans and seal them with lead in order to make them sealed. And that's a really good way to get lead poisoning.
Yeah.
So, as if it wasn't hard enough to do Arctic exploring, like these guys also like just ate that like would kill them. I also have to say, like, if we're talking about D&D dragons, like there's a whole bunch of elemental stuff going on in there, right? Like, you probably don't want to eat a black dragon. They're full of poison, right?
Well, they're full of acid. So
acid. Oh, like dragon ceviche then.
Yeah.
This all led into a giant conversation about whether or not it's moral or immoral to eat sentient creatures or not.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, like, yeah, but like, I think there's a détente that is entered into. Like, if a dragon's going to try to eat you, you have full reign to eat the dragon if you kill it. If everybody's agreed not to eat each other, then yes, you can't eat sentient creatures. But like, if they're coming for me and I kill them, I'm going to eat them.
Yeah. Golden rule.
Yeah.
Don't eat it if you're not prepared for it to eat you back.
All right. Well, I think that's a complete episode, and we will catch you guys in 2 weeks.
All right. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Monster Mechanics. If you're listening to this upon release, then there is a single week left to get auditions in for season 2 of Breathing Space Fading Frontier, which is the sci-fi anthology audio drama that I help write and produce, and that like Zach was on. And if you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it. It's very good. But also, we are looking for people for season 2. So if you head on over to our Twitter, I'm going to make the retweet of the casting call, our pinned tweet, at least for the next week. And if you're hearing this sometime in the future, go check out Breathing Space Fading Frontier. All right, on to the credits. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. All of the ideas generated during this podcast are released under a do what the you want public license.